How can Syracuse upset Tennessee? You guys gave your thoughts.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching Locked On Syracuse right now on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite audio platform. On today's show, it is your thoughts about how Syracuse football can possibly upset Tennessee down in Atlanta, Georgia this Saturday at noon Eastern. I asked on social media and on YouTube over the past couple of days to give me your thoughts about how the Orange can somehow upset the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that has dominated the ACC over the past couple of seasons. Syracuse currently a 13.5-point underdog over on FanDuel. So let's get into your thoughts right now. And this first one is coming from Ryan. And just before I show it on the screen, if you are listening to this podcast, don't worry, I will read your thoughts and opinions in this episode. So let's show it right now. This is from Ryan. On offense, the offensive line must meet the challenge against a top 10 D, returning most of its starters, protect Angeli, and open running lanes. Defense, front six must make Aguilar uncomfortable early. Inexperienced offense led by a new QB who is a flawed pocket passer. Get him off his game and stall them. Thank you so much, Ryan, for the comments. Let's go to the offense angle first regarding Syracuse. Josh Heupel's defenses over at Tennessee, he got there in 2021. They have progressively gotten better since he has taken over, at least relative to his conference, which is the SEC. And we're talking about total defense, which is yards allowed per game. In 2021, Tennessee had the 11th defense in the SEC, but that's okay. I mean, it's Josh Heupel's first year. You kind of give him a pass for that. 11th is not very good. In 2022, Tennessee was 10th in the SEC. So slight improvement, but still not where you want to be. But once you get to 2023, that's when Tennessee really became an elite defense. They were 4th in the SEC in total defense. And in 2024, which was last year, they were 2nd in the conference. So you're right. This is one of the better defenses in the nation year over year under Josh Heupel. And there's no reason to believe why in 2025 they can't once again be one of the top defenses in the country. Now, we heard from Locked On Vols host Eric Kane that Tennessee, they're going to rotate a bunch of defensive linemen. So for this offensive line of Syracuse, how are they going to be able to hold up against very talented and fresh defensive linemen for Tennessee? That is something that I'm certainly going to keep an eye on. One thing I'm also going to keep an eye on, and Syracuse fans, this is important, is the Tennessee secondary. And I'm going to mention a couple of players for you right now, one of which is probably not going to play, and the other might not see the field all that much. Tennessee will most likely be without all-conference corner Jermod McCoy. He is recovering from ACL surgery. He is a projected first-round pick. And Tennessee fans, I understand that your team has a lot of depth, but you cannot sit here and tell me that Jermod McCoy is not a big loss for your program. So for Syracuse, can you take advantage of no Jermod McCoy in the lineup? Also, sophomore all-conference corner Boo Carter. He may also be limited for Tennessee. Now, it has nothing necessarily to do with injury. I'm not going to get into all the details about what happened with him and the Tennessee program, but let's just say there was some shenanigans behind the scenes, okay? And if you want more information on that, I'm sure you can go back over the last couple of weeks. You can check out Locked On Vols with Eric Kane, and he can explain that situation more in depth. But for the purposes of this game, he may not be at 100%. He is a great returner, so Syracuse does have to keep an eye out for him if he is in there on punt returns and on kick returns. But as far as defense, we don't know exactly how much he is going to play as of this moment. Regardless, Tennessee's defense should be stout, and Steve Angeli is going to have to make quick decisions with the football to try to mitigate the pressure that Tennessee can have. As far as defense for Syracuse, Ryan, you make great points, but I think priority number one for the Syracuse defense is to try to contain this Tennessee running game. And here's a stat for you all, okay? Because we've heard some of the numbers out there, but here's one that I had to dig a little bit deep for. Tennessee has run the ball well over 50% of the time in every year under Josh Heupel. He got there again in 2021. Let's go by year. In 2021, Tennessee ran the ball over 60% of the time. 2022, 55%. 2023, over 54%. And last year, over 60%. So if you're Syracuse, take some notes. Tennessee is likely going to come out and try to establish that running game. And if they are able to establish that running game, that's not a good sign for this Syracuse team, because I think Tennessee is perfectly content with winning this game with Joey Aguilar maybe attempting 15 passes. That's on the table. They might not ask Joey Aguilar to do all that much against Syracuse, because if they establish that running game, why abandon it, especially if you get the lead against Syracuse? That's another thing for Syracuse. Get the lead and force Tennessee to become a pass-first team. So thank you, Ryan, for your thoughts. Let's move on to New York, Carolina. I got two ideas. Throw Jonte Cook at them. Jermon McCoy, one of the best corners in the nation, will miss the first couple of games. This could lead to mismatches that could help us, referring to Syracuse, of course. Number two, force Joey Aguilar to turn the ball over at Appalachian State. He had turnover issues. Again, on offense, I do imagine that Syracuse is going to use Jonte Cook quite a bit. Jonte Cook is the Texas and Washington transfer, a former five-star recruit in 2023. He's got the speed and hopefully the talent to create separation against Tennessee defensive backs, even without Jermon McCoy and possibly a little bit of Boot Carter as well. Tennessee still has pretty decent depth over there. We already talked about, though, of course, them not really having Jermon McCoy and Boot Carter, so let's move on. On defense, yeah, Joey Aguilar, like it or not, Tennessee fans, at least at Appalachian State, he was prone to making mistakes. That doesn't mean he's going to be the same at Tennessee, as some of you have pointed out. Under Josh Heupel, a lot of quarterbacks have had very low turnover rates with him, thanks to that offense and the talent that they typically put around their quarterbacks. But for now, we can only base it off what he did at Appalachian State. Joey Aguilar does turn the ball over quite a bit. He threw 24 interceptions in 25 career games over at App State. So it's not necessarily about forcing a mistake if you're Syracuse. Forcing a mistake means that you got to make the play yourself. Like Devin Grant forcing that fumble on Xavier Restrepo, then picking it up and running it back for 6 like he did at the end of the season last year against Miami. Joey Aguilar, just like most quarterbacks in the nation and around the world, are going to give you a chance or two. And it's up to Syracuse to be in the right spot and to be able to execute when they get that gift. Chances are at some point in this game, Joey Aguilar is going to make a bad throw. Joey Aguilar is going to make a bad decision. You attempt enough passes, it's going to happen. Again, it's not meant to be disrespect. It happens to every quarterback in the league. It happens to Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills all the time. And sometimes he'll have a game where you intercept him 3 to 4 times because he will put the ball in harm's way. So if and when Joey Aguilar puts the ball in harm's way by his own doing, if you're Syracuse, you have to be there to make the play. Again, Syracuse, 13.5-point underdog in this game. They got to make that one play to flip the script, change the possession a little bit. You're a 2-touchdown underdog. A pick 6 is a 14-point swing. There you go. You just made up the point spread right then and there. So it's not necessarily about forcing Joey Aguilar into mistakes, but it's more about being there when he actually does make a mistake. But that is another excellent point right over there. We'll take a quick break and then we'll get back to your fan takes. Today is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. For a few days already, I have been saying I think Ashton Jeanty is a pretty good bet to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He is the first-round running back for the Las Vegas Raiders, very talented out of Boise State. But not only that, he's going to the Raiders, who don't have that much on their offense aside from Brock Bowers and maybe Jacoby Myers, if that. And their head coach is Pete Carroll. And we know that Pete Carroll, based on his time in Seattle, he loves himself a workhorse running back. He didn't just do it with Marshawn Lynch. He also made Thomas Rawls a workhorse running back. He made Chris Carson a workhorse running back. What do you think he's going to do with Ashton Jeanty, who's got more talent than both of those guys? Agree with me? Disagree with me? Well, you can put your money where your mouth is. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. That's right. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. We're about to get back into your takes about how Syracuse can possibly upset Tennessee in week one down in Atlanta, Georgia, as a 13.5-point underdog over on FanDuel. But before we continue with this podcast, I just want to thank you all for the support over the last few days and especially over this offseason. It truly means a ton, and we got plenty of more content coming your way here on Locked On Syracuse. So if you want to stay up to date with all things Syracuse football heading into the season opener against Tennessee, and also post-game coverage against Tennessee and coverage throughout the 2025 season, you're going to want to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. It helps the channel grow to reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Of course, thank you all so much for the support. Let's get back into your fan takes about how the Orange can upset Tennessee in week one. And this next comment is coming from a very special guest. That's right, Tim Tebow. That's right, Tim Tebow chiming in, former Gators quarterback. Just kidding, of course, this is not the actual Tim Tebow here, but he says Joey Aguilar needs 2+ interceptions at minimum. I'm not going to complain, Mr. Tim Tebow, not the real Tim Tebow, if Joey Aguilar throws 2 or more interceptions. I think that plays right into the hands of Syracuse football as far as pulling off an upset. Think back to last year when Cal went on the road and they beat Auburn. Nobody really expected Cal to win that game. I understand Tennessee, that Auburn was not a good SEC team last year, but still, nobody thought Cal, who was not a good ACC team, was going to beat Auburn on the road. But Auburn turned the ball over 5 times. You turn the ball over 5 times, I don't care what the matchup is, you're giving the underdog a chance to win. So, of course, I'm not going to complain if Joey Aguilar throws 2 or more interceptions. But the way I look at it is it's more on the Syracuse end. They cannot turn the ball over more than once. You get 1. That's it. And it can't be a pick 6 or a fumble 6. It's got to be one of those no man's land turnovers. If Steve Angeli throws an interception at the Tennessee 42-yard line and they're down right then and there, you still give them a relatively long distance to at least get a touchdown, maybe a short field to get a field goal. But the point being is that it cannot be a super duper impactful turnover if you're Syracuse. And we've already talked about the defensive side of things. Joey Aguilar, he's probably going to make one or two mistakes at minimum in this game. It's just his track record over at Appalachian State and quarterbacks in general. Syracuse has got to be there when he actually makes the mistake, and they have to make at least one big play on defense or on special teams. The example that I always use, and I've already used it on this podcast, but it's worth repeating, is that Miami game and Devin Grant's fumble return touchdown in the third quarter against Miami. It gave Syracuse the lead for the first time in that one. And I don't know about you, but Syracuse fans who remember that game, maybe you feel differently than I do. But when Devin Grant returned that touchdown after forcing the fumble against Xavier Restrepo and gave Syracuse the lead for the first time, that was the moment where I felt, oh, Syracuse might actually win this game. Because up until that point, yeah, Miami got a big lead and Syracuse had done a great job to erase the big lead. And at that point, I think the game was tied. But I still felt that Miami's going to come up with that play or two to find a way to beat Syracuse, as they had done to most teams except for Georgia Tech all year long. But Devin Grant turned that game around. He made that play, gave Syracuse the lead. That was the first time I felt Syracuse was going to win. And of course, they hold on to win that game. Syracuse against Tennessee, they're going to need to do something very similar where they need to make that big play to really make you think that Syracuse is going to win and really plant that seed of doubt into Tennessee. I'm not going to sit here and say that Tennessee is overlooking Syracuse. I think Josh Heupel is going to have his team prepared, but naturally they are the favorite. If you can plant that seed of doubt into them, maybe, just maybe, that's your path to an upset over this team. Let's move on now to David, who writes, hot take. It wouldn't be an upset if Syracuse were to beat Tennessee. It would be upholding the new standard. David, I absolutely love the mindset, as I commented on your Twitter post right there. Thank you so much for chiming in. For now, I'm just basing this off of what FanDuel and the sportsbook over there is saying. And they are saying that Syracuse is a 13.5-point underdog. So for now, Syracuse is an underdog. Therefore, if they were to win, of course, it's an upset. Now, in hindsight, who knows? Who knows? It's only week one. All we have right now is paper and prior history. Useful tools to try to determine what's going to happen in a game, but we have nothing for this season. Absolutely nothing about Tennessee. Absolutely nothing about Syracuse. Neither of them have played a single down of football in 2025. They did not play in week 0. I go back to last year in week 0 when Georgia Tech in Ireland upset Florida State. At the time, that was a really big upset, Georgia Tech winning at the buzzer. In hindsight, it was not an upset. Florida State was awful. Georgia Tech ended up being a pretty good team. Now, Tennessee fans, don't come at me. I'm not trying to sit here and say that Tennessee is going to be Florida State 2.0 in 2025. No, I am not saying that. I do not think they're going 2-10. They are a bowl team at minimum. They're probably going to win at least 8 to 9 games. They're a good program. Okay, this is not meant to be disrespectful, but more so to David's point, how in hindsight, maybe you do look at this game differently because you never really know, especially in week 1, where truly it feels like anything is possible. So thank you so much for the comments there, David. Let's move on to this next comment here. This is coming from Gavin over on YouTube. If Angeli can come out and be 75% as good as Kyle McCord, they could keep it close with the wide receiver room. Thank you so much, Gavin, for the comment there. 75% of Kyle McCord would be a fantastic season for Steve Angeli. Fantastic. That would be nearly 3,600 yards. I know compared to Kyle McCord, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but 3,600 passing yards in a season is actually a pretty big total. 25 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions. If Steve Angeli performs to that level, Syracuse is a bowl team. 25-9, 3,600 yards. If they don't make a bowl, then they were just awful in every other aspect of the game. And hopefully in the offseason, they would be able to shore those holes up because you would at least know that you have the quarterback for 2026. Again, Steve Angeli has got one more year of eligibility following this season. So in theory, he could be Syracuse's starting quarterback in 2026. Now, here's a question that I have for you all right now, and also for Gavin, who left this comment. Can Steve Angeli lead Syracuse to 30 or more points against Tennessee? And this is going to go back to my point about how a defensive store or a special teams store is so critical for Syracuse to upsetting Tennessee. So let's look at the numbers. Since 2021, that is when Josh Heupel became the head coach over at Tennessee, Tennessee has played 20 non-conference games, including bowls, and of course, last year's college football playoff against Ohio State. Tennessee, in those 20 games, they have only allowed 30 or more points in 3 occasions. So 3 out of 20 times, they allow 30 or more points against power conference opponents in that time frame that were not in the SEC. So now we're shortening the sample a little bit, but also taking out some of the easy, super duper easy cupcakes, no FCS opponents, no non-power conference opponents. Power conference opponents now, in that time frame, opponents have averaged about 24 points per game. So I think Syracuse is going to need at least 30 to pull off this upset. If they do what the average opponent has done against Tennessee in non-conference play as a power conference team since 2021 and put up 24 points on offense, will it be enough? Probably not, unless they are able to get that defensive score or that special team score, because that pushes them over 30 points. That's where I can see Syracuse possibly pulling off an upset. When we come back, more reaction to your fan takes for how Syracuse can pull off an upset. Stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Let's get back to reacting to your takes about how Syracuse can possibly pull off an upset against Tennessee on Saturday. And this next take is coming over from Danny. Danny writes, if there is a week to do it, week 1 is your best shot. I partially agree with you here, Danny, because upsets can occur on any given week, but week 1 is the only time where you have no data on the opponent for that season. We talked about this earlier on in the podcast. We can discuss the history of Tennessee since Josh Heupel has taken over. We could talk about Syracuse with Fran Brown in 2024. But in terms of data for 2025, as far as trying to pick this game, we have none. All we have is depth charts and trying to see the bios of players. What were they in high school? What were they in the transfer portal? What were they last season? Try to match them up, see if maybe Syracuse can hang, if Tennessee's going to maybe blow out Syracuse. We don't truly know. We don't have any data for 2025. So you're partially right on that. I think for Syracuse and Tennessee, maybe this is Syracuse's best chance. Catch them in week one when they're still breaking in a new offense. Same thing with Syracuse, right? But maybe Syracuse is the team that can adjust faster. They can develop chemistry a little bit quicker with Steve Angeli and his wide receivers compared to maybe Joey Aguilar and his wide receivers and the run game and the new offensive line. They got probably more talent than Syracuse, if we're being honest. But maybe it takes them time to develop chemistry. And if they have no chemistry, they can have all the talent in the world. They might not win the game as a result of that. So, yeah, Danny, I can partially see your point on that, where week one might be Syracuse's best chance to pull off the upset. And thankfully, they are playing Tennessee in week one. I also should mention, though, just a fair warning, Syracuse fans, Tennessee, they played NC State early last year. That was week two. NC State also had played 2 games, I think, prior, maybe only 1 game prior. I don't remember if they played in week 0 or not. But regardless, NC State had already played at least 1 game. They got demolished by Tennessee. Demolished. When Tennessee played Virginia in week 1, that was week 1. Tennessee destroyed them. So it might not matter either way that Syracuse is playing Tennessee in week 1, because what they've done recently to ACC opponents is not very favorable for Syracuse. Hopefully, the Orange could be the exception, though. This next one is pretty funny. It's coming from Mr. Dodger 1966. Maybe Syracuse can steal all of Tennessee's equipment. 100%. 100%. Make Tennessee forfeit. Sure, that is a excellent strategy. I'll certainly take the win. I don't know what I would say on the podcast in the post-game reaction. Probably making fun, but hey, I mean, I'll take the win, Mr. Dodger. Syracuse wants to steal all the equipment and they win the game. Fine by me. Syracuse will be 1-0 heading into UConn in week 2. But back to a more serious comment here. This is coming from Nezzy02, quote tweeted my post. They got a very good defense. Jeff Nixon, who is Syracuse's offensive coordinator, for those that don't know, has gotta be aggressive. 100% with you on that. If Syracuse is going to go down in this game, go down swinging. Be aggressive. You're a 13.5 point underdog. You're in Atlanta, Georgia. You're in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Like it or not, there is probably going to be more Tennessee fans in the building. Syracuse, I know it's weird to say. What do you have to lose? You might as well play the game to win. Play the game to win. Take that deep shot if you really want to. Be aggressive on offense. If you're going to get killed, you're going to get killed. It is what it is, but at least go down knowing that you gave it your best shot against Tennessee. Leave nothing to chance, leave nothing to doubt. Go out there and try to play your best game of the season, which, of course, it's week 1, so you only got 1 game, right? Also, kind of goes hand in hand with this, but it's not directly tied with Jeff Nixon. Remember last year how Syracuse was not very good at field goal kicking? They tried many different kickers, and they just simply could not convert their kicks. 59% last year, which was worst in the ACC. Remember that? Wasn't very fun. And also, Syracuse still has a kicker battle at this very moment. If Syracuse doesn't trust its kicking game, then I fully support in this one going for it in non-conventional situations. I'll give you an example. Let's say Syracuse finds itself, 4th and 5 from the Tennessee 20-yard line. That would be a 37-yard field goal attempt. Logically, unless you absolutely need a touchdown, you're going to kick the field goal. Right? 37-yarder, 5 yards to go on 4th down. Maybe on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, you decide to go it forward. But 4th and 5, 99% of the time, you're kicking the field goal. However, if you don't trust your kicking game and you think maybe something bad could happen beyond just a missed kick, I'm talking about a block kick that can get returned for a touchdown, I support going for it. Syracuse did that last year, and it worked for them. And it made sense, more importantly. You're 59% field goal kicking. You're not very good. There's no guarantee you're making that 37-yard field goal. And even if you're making that 37-yard field goal, you're going to make it at a lesser rate than most teams in the country, at least basing it off last season. And actually, the year before, they weren't very good either at field goal kicking. It goes back to being aggressive. It doesn't necessarily have to relate to Jeff Nixon, but it's more on Fran Brown to make that determination whether or not he trusts his kicking game against Tennessee in week 1. Maybe against UConn in week 2, you say, you know what, 4th and 5 from the UConn 20, we're going to kick the field goal. Right? We're going to kick the field goal. Should be a little bit less pressure on you to make that field goal. Against Tennessee, where you need all the help you can get as a 13.5-point underdog over on FanDuel, if you're not confident in your field goal kicking, go for it. Why not? Put your offense on the field. Leave nothing to chance. So that just about does it for your fan comments about how Syracuse can possibly upset Tennessee in week 1. Thank you all so much who participated. If I did not get to your comment, I apologize. Maybe I will get to your comment in the post-game show following Syracuse and Tennessee. My plan for post-games this year is to do not 1, but 2 post-game shows. One show where we give our thoughts over here on Locked On Syracuse. We give you the stats. We look at the road ahead, as well as a gut reaction to the game. And then another follow-up podcast where we simply respond to your takes here on Locked On Syracuse. You guys give your thoughts, your opinions, and then I come on the podcast and I say, yep, I agree with you. Yep, I disagree with you. Or maybe I need to think about that a little bit differently from what I said in the post-game show. So hopefully I can get to your comments there post-game, Syracuse and Tennessee. But as far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future, tomorrow, we got another guest on the program, and an old friend returns to the show. I'll give you one moment to guess before I say his name. 1, 2, 3. Tyler Budge, more known maybe as @CFBudge over on YouTube. He does a tremendous job covering all things college football. He is a neutral party for Syracuse and Tennessee. He's going to give his thoughts on the matchup, whether or not Syracuse can pull off an upset, and also his thoughts on Syracuse's season outlook for 2025. I think it's always beneficial to hear from a neutral party about Syracuse heading into the upcoming season. So that's what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, you have a few choices. You could check out the Locked On Portal Show with football recruiting expert Brian Smith. You could check out Locked On ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs as they get you ready for all the ACC matchups in week 1. Of course, they're going to be talking about Syracuse and Tennessee on there. You could check it out on Locked On ACC. And of course, if you want a more broad landscape of all things college football, you could check out Locked On College Football with host Spencer McLaughlin. You can find the Portal Show, Locked On ACC, and Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. And if you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe and tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. I will see you all again soon.